One question that I commonly see asked on social media is, how do you improve your fuel economy? Now, I get it. It's muscle car stuff. It's big cubic inch engines. It's big rowdy camshafts and all that. But there are still ways you can get some better fuel economy so you're not spending all your money at the gas pump and you can spend it on buying more parts. So that's what this video is about. Show you just the biggest, most easiest way to get the best amount of fuel economy out of even a big old rowdy big block. Now, sure, the easy response to this is just drop a late model engine in it. LS, Gen 3 Hemi, Coyote, Mod Motor Ford, doesn't matter what it is. And yes, they are far more efficient than anything that was built in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever. But that's not the only way you can get good fuel economy. The good, easy way to get better fuel economy is not in the engine, it's in the transmission. And I'm going to show you why. So we're going to use my 2017 Silverado as an example here. Now this is all really based on engine RPM, controlling that. So I'm going to put in the gear ratio. It's a 323. We are on a 31 inch tall tire, and let's hold the speed at 50 miles per hour. On a 1-to-1 gear ratio, final drive ratio, when you hit calculate, that will give you the amount of RPM that the engine will turn based on the numbers you put in there. So at 50 miles per hour, you're going to be running about 1,700, 1,800 RPM. When you drop the transmission down to a final drive of 0.65, look how drastically that number reduces from 1,750 down to 1,130. Very, very big reduction in engine RPM. Engine's not running as fast, it's not going to use as much fuel. So let's put in 70 miles per hour, and we'll look at that 0.65. 1,500, 1,600 RPM is where you're going to be running at. Not bad at all. Let's take a look at a 1-to-1 ratio here on the final gear and calculate it. Now you go up almost 1,000 RPM. This is where you make the biggest gains in fuel economy, is by dropping the RPM, and the place to do that is in the transmission. Now let's look at this from the standpoint of driving down the road. At 70 miles per hour, I am holding it in 6th gear, which on a 8-speed transmission is a 1-to-1 drive. We are running about 2,400 RPM, approximately what we said we were going to be in the calculator. When I jump that to 7th gear, now we kick it up to 2,000, and now we're down to, in 8th gear, we are at around that 1,500 RPM, 1,600 RPM at 70 miles per hour. Huge, huge differences in engine operating RPM when you reduce the amount of rear end gear or final drive gear in the transmission. Now let's compare two really popular automatic transmissions, the Turbo 400 and the 4L80E transmission. Turbo 400, older transmission, non-electronic. The new 4L80 is an electronically controlled transmission. The gear ratios in first, second, and third between the 400 and the 4L80E are exactly the same. Where this transmission makes the most difference on the modern electronic transmission is that overdrive gear, and you get to a 0.75. Now that drastically, if we remember back just a second ago on the calculator, provides a drastic drop in engine operating RPM. That's why the 4L80 is such a great street transmission, because it still allows you to give that same stoplight to stoplight type activity, fun to drive. You can put a decent rear end ratio gear in the back. But with the 4L80 and the overdrive, you can cruise it down the highway, keep your engine operating RPM down. When you do that, you don't use as much fuel. That's why a modern transmission is much, much better, because it's got extra gears in the transmission. And that's a popular way that we talk about that when someone asks us, how do I get more fuel economy? Add more gears to the transmission. And now you can see why. Now let's take a look at a very popular manual transmission. This one's made by Tremec. It's a close ratio transmission, 297 first gear, 210 second, and on down the line. Fourth gear is that 1-to-1 final drive, where you really, this transmission really makes a big difference, is that 5th and 6th gear. Sixth gear for sure, as you're cruising down the highway at 70 miles per hour, if we remember again back to the calculator we use, drops your engine RPM down significantly. If your rowdy big block is cruising down the highway at 70 miles per hour at 1500 RPM, what's using more fuel there, or as if you're running at 3200 RPM because you've got a big 456 gear or something out back that you like to use for drag racing and stop to stoplight type driving. Again, this is where you make all your fuel economy gains, is in the transmission. Those additional overdrive gears in there make a massive amount of difference. Now, yeah, the cost is going to be pretty high. I mean, you're going to have to spend a significant amount of money if you're taking an old Turbo 350 or Turbo 400 car and throwing a 4L80 in it. You've got transmission, torque converter, possibly a flex plate change, and you've got electronics to control the shift points and all that. But that's another side benefit of having a modern transmission, is being able to control those yourself. But yeah, the cost is going to be high, but I would venture to guess you're going to pay for it pretty quickly if you're not stopping at every gas station you see. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a really quick down and dirty about why the transmission is the place to find fuel economy. If you have any questions about this video, if you want to leave a comment down below, I'd love to hear your experiences with this. And if you've got any questions, like I said, I'm always here to answer them. I appreciate it. We'll catch you guys on the next one.